I don't know what to say. Well, welcome back to my sweet lifers. I had to move today's scheduled video because I just learned that Chris Hogan, the author of this book and the famous Dave Ramsey personality, was fired, let go, and is now gone. Well, welcome back to my sweet lifers to another personal finance video. A little bit weird this time, but we got to talk about this. Not only is there a lot of things going on with the Dave Ramsey Corporation, not just with Chris Hogan, but also with some lawsuits that are coming up. We got a lot to break down in this video, so tap the like button if you're ready to get started right now. And if you're not a sweet lifer and you're ready to learn more about personal finance and become a future millionaire yourself, subscribe today. Smash that subscribe button down below. All right, here's what we're talking about. We're going to talk about Chris Hogan and what is going on about his recent termination from the company. We're going to talk about the lawsuit, and we're going to talk about another thing that's coming up big on the news with a Christmas party that Dave recently hosted that became quite a mess. We got a lot to talk about today. Okay, the very first thing we got to talk about is a video that was put out by Chris Hogan just a couple days ago where he announces that he is not with Ramsey Solutions anymore. This is the guy, and I actually have his other book back here, Retire Inspired. Okay, so he did this book. He did this other book, Everyday Millionaires. He is a prominent voice on the Dave Ramsey show and even has his own podcast. Well, he did until just recently. Really, the reason behind this is, unfortunately, Chris has been subject, from what I understand and what I'm reading, to some extramarital affairs. And as a result of that, was terminated due to some of the restrictions and requirements and job type of contracting that goes behind working for Ramsey Solutions. But as we dig into this, things get very, very interesting. By the way, everything that I mentioned in today's video will be linked down in the description so you can check it out for yourself. But let's start first with Chris Hogan, and then we're going to move on to this other lawsuit that's currently brewing, and also this Christmas party thing. So there's a lot of weird things going on here. The very first thing, okay, there's a blog post from Melissa Hogan. Melissa Hogan is the ex-wife of Chris Hogan. Well, come to find out, back in 2005, Chris Hogan gets to meet Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey and him develop this connection, and he becomes kind of this personality on the Dave Ramsey show. Not only that, he creates his first book, which is Retire Inspired. And he begins this whole thing about being America's voice on retirement. Anything you needed to know about retirement or baby step forward in the Dave Ramsey program was kind of covered by Chris Hogan. Now, of course, during this entire period of time, Dave Ramsey has always been known for helping people get out of debt, start building up their wealth. He has helped me as well. I discovered Dave right around 2013, 2014, started listening to the podcast every day on my way into work. And then I got this book right here, The Total Money Makeover, and I decided to get busy right away. And so I got out of all the debt and everything like that. And currently we're on baby step 6, which means paying off our mortgage. But I come to find out that, Dave is very hardcore about certain biblical principles, and that means things like premarital sex and extramarital affairs. And unfortunately, Chris Hogan is subject to that. So in the blog that his wife just recently put out, again, link down below in the description if you want to check it out right after this video, she goes into a little bit more detail on what happened. She obviously recognizes the fact that, it looks like he was recently terminated. He put out this video on YouTube, and now here we are. Ramsey Solutions, according to the blog post put out by Melissa Hogan, knew about this extramarital affair as early as 2018. So that's like how many years ago now? So they knew about this going on, and they decided, instead of terminating Chris Hogan at that point, that they would put them through this rehabilitation program. And it basically involved, of course, marital counseling, getting involved in their church, kind of talking it through with some pastors and things like that. But where things get, I think, a little bit strange in this is that Ramsey Solutions, as the employer of Chris Hogan, had this clause, again, all according to what I'm reading here on her blog, that they had to report all of these personal details when it came down to the marriage consultations, to what was being said, to how things were progressing to the employer. So basically, Dave Ramsey and the Ramsey Solutions Company, otherwise known as Lampo Group LLC, had the full rights to all of the personal details of what was going on in these marriage counseling sessions and everything in between. And she goes on to say that there has been times that she would go to meet with Dave or go to meet with representatives in the Dave Ramsey Corporation, and or should I say Lampo Group, and they would pull her in and start talking to her about some things and being very aggressive. There was a period of time that she references on her blog where she wanted to meet with Dave, and she was met with not just Dave, but 2 other board members, and completely annihilated and ripped apart for giving away too much information publicly. Of course, they're worried about the media taking advantage of this and maybe some things that aren't exactly true getting out to the open world, and of course that becomes a complete and utter mess for Dave Ramsey. Now remember, this is a $42 million company based in Franklin, Tennessee. They just recently opened a whole new studio set back in 2019. They're listened to by millions of people on their podcast. Dave Ramsey is a very well-known name. And of course, something like this could go quite backwards. If you remember, there's the recent scandal of course, Matt Lauer at NBC and some of the other things. This is a big deal, and I can see why they're a little bit nervous, but I do think it's a very strange that they would actually go into the personal life to kind of monitor what's going on. What do you guys think about that? Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on that particular piece. Well, anyway, so long story, somewhat short, now we're at this point where they get a divorce, no longer husband and wife. Things continue on. And here we are, it's now March of 2021, and just recently, a couple days ago, I think it was March 10th, Chris puts out a statement on his YouTube channel that he's no longer with the company. Now, he doesn't go into any details. He just basically says, I've had some, I think it was misconduct, and as a result, I'm no longer with Ramsey Solutions. And that was the end of that. That's all it was said. So thank God we kind of have this blog to really understand kind of the other side of the story. I definitely feel for Melissa Hogan, who was going through all of these very interesting trials. I mean, imagine if you had something personal going on in your life and your employer had full access in real time, by the way, in real time, to know exactly what was going on with you. That's a little bit weird. It's kind of a little bit of an invasion of privacy in my mind. And sure, you could have maybe a contract. I'm not a lawyer, but you could maybe have like something in a job contract that allows you to have certain rights. But don't you think that stretches a little bit beyond like a reasonable right to know somebody's private information? I don't know. It just seems a little bit strange to me. And then that leads us to the recent lawsuit. Now there's a lawsuit out there, and this lawsuit is against, of course, the Lampo Group, which is the LLC that represents Ramsey Solutions and the group within that. This is a particular issue with somebody that had premarital sex. Well, why do we know that this person had premarital sex? Well, apparently what was going on is that this person got pregnant, and of course everybody at Ramsey Solutions knew that this girl was not married. So because that violated what they focus on with biblical principles of not having premarital sex, she was terminated for that issue. But the issue she has with this, and I think some of this, as we dig into the lawsuit, we start to realize that she was terminated almost right on the spot as they found out that she was pregnant, or as they found out that there was some premarital sex going on, she gets terminated. But then Chris Hogan, they find out about this in 2018. He gets an opportunity to try to repair and go through this counseling with his marriage, giving him years upon years. Of course, a whole year goes by, then they have a divorce, and then another 2 years go by. And that to me is just a little bit interesting, because why would we get to that point of saying, wait a minute, we want to give this person the ability to recover himself and rehabilitate, but this person, no. Now, of course, one could argue, well, this issue here with Chris Hogan is that he's a prominent figure at Ramsey Solutions, giving him that right versus somebody that might be behind the scenes, back of house, in some type of capacity administrative. It doesn't matter as much. But where's the fairness in that? That seems a little bit strange to me. So we have Chris Hogan, we have this girl that was terminated that has a lawsuit pending, and then we have the Christmas party. Now the Christmas party is interesting. A big Christmas party hosted by Dave Ramsey. That's fine, that's cool, right? Do your thing. Reward your employees, have a good time, that's always important. But where things get a little bit strange here is that they hire some people to help obviously run the event. And in some of the contracts found by some local news stations, they realized that they were specifically asking the caterers and the people that were serving the food not to wear masks or gloves. And now we're talking about the pandemic. We're talking about December 2020, and we're obviously still in the midst of all the shenanigans that have been going on since last year, March 2020. So you're in the middle of this and you specifically ask, don't have the caterers wear masks. I think that's a strange request. on top of that, there were a lot of people just kind of gathered around, having a good old time, dancing the night away. You got a casino apparently going on and no mask being worn. So that becomes a little bit of a challenge for one particular husband of an employee that worked there. So you have this guy who goes with his wife and he's like, hey, I don't like this. I don't like the fact that we're not being safe. I don't like the fact that we're not wearing masks and whatever. So he makes some type of comment about it. She gets terminated. She gets terminated for his displeasure that he announced about the party and how it was being run. I don't know, what do you guys think about that too? So here we got 3 different issues, somewhat similar in the sense of people either being terminated or not based on potential favoritism or maybe preference over somebody that might have a little bit more prominence than the other. There's a lot of weird things going on. Guys, this is all over the place, don't you think? I think it's really important to think about, you know what? Besides the Christmas party mess, here we got somebody that got pregnant, premarital sex. We don't know if maybe they were planning to get married or if it was just something that was whoops, but whatever, we had that happen. Then you have Chris Hogan with some affairs going on and things like that. You know, outside of that kind of stuff, I think that around the world, first of all, this is crushing. You know, somebody that has followed Dave Ramsey, it really disappoints me that Chris has had this happen, and it is sad, and I feel bad for the people involved. We all have problems though, and it may not even be that. Maybe you're struggling with some type of an addiction. Maybe you know somebody that might be going through a hard time in depression, and I think what is so important is to, from a biblical perspective, right? I would think, wouldn't you want to extend that hand to anybody? Not just Chris Hogan, who's prominent, but also to that person that had premarital sex, or somebody that may have an opportunity to better themselves and may need your helping hand and your guidance. Now, I'm not saying go and dip into their private life like they did with Chris Hogan. I'm just saying point them in the direction of a good resource. It's something that can help them become a better person. That's my personal opinion. But until next time, I got some other videos outside of today's topic that you might find interesting. Go check them out. And until next time, keep living your sweet life. We'll see you on the next video.